Growth and development. As a coach, you may work with athletes of any age, and it is important to realize that growth and development is not just an issue with children and young athletes. Each of us grows and develops in different ways throughout our lives, and this is the same for all the athletes we coach. Children are not just smaller versions of adults. They have very particular needs and capabilities. One of the major issues in children's sport can be a lack of knowledge on the part of coaches and parents about how children grow and develop. This ignorance places unrealistic expectations on the child and often causes them to give up the sport. Children have many sports that they can choose to do. That they choose to do sport at will, whether it is for recreation or competition, is a very positive thing. All coaches should work to ensure that the training programs they plan are suitable for the long-term, lifelong physical and mental development of the athletes they work with. Good coaches know and understand the many changes that take place from child to adult and structure their coaching to best suit the needs of the young athlete. The figure below shows the clear growth stages that children pass through from birth to adult. The stages are the same for boys and girls, but girls generally mature earlier than boys. Here we can see the stages in growth and development up to adulthood: infancy, childhood, puberty, adolescence, adulthood. You can see there is a great variation in the maturity stages of females and males. Infancy is seen almost the same, but the female's childhood is generally up to the age of 10, while males it is up to 11 and a half. At the age of 10, females, the stage of puberty begins and it lasts up to 12 and a half. While in male it begins at 11 and a half and it prolongs up to 14. In females, after 13, adolescence begins and it lasts up to 18. While in male it starts at 14 and it can prolong to 20. After 18, females, adulthood develops, while in male it is after 20. So we can clearly see that the maturity of females is much earlier than the boys. Physical growth is obviously important to performance. We will start by looking at how the body changes physically during development. There are important changes in body size and proportions. These changes affect the way children can perform different skills and activities. Now we will see the patterns of growth. Changes in size. Children grow in size at a very fast rate. At birth, infants are only about a quarter of their adult height. This final adult height is usually reached at about 20 years of age. There are 4 characteristic stages of growth from birth to adult. A rapid growth in infancy and at early childhood. Slow, steady growth in middle childhood. Rapid growth during puberty. Gradual slowing down of growth in adolescence until adult height is reached. The figure below shows the increase in body size from birth to adult. Next, we will see the changes in proportions. The physical proportions of the body at birth are very different from those of the adult. Some body parts grow more than others during development to reach the final adult proportions. The illustration below shows the relative size of body parts at different ages. You can see the head is proportionally large and the legs proportionally short during childhood. At birth, the head is 1/4 of the length of the body compared with about 1/6 in the adult. The legs are about 1/3 the length of the body at birth and 1/2 in the adult. Because the body proportions change, this means that not all of the body segments grow by the same amount. You can see how different parts of the body, or the rate at which different parts of the body grows when they reach from birth to adulthood. From birth to 1 year, the growth of trunk. 1 year to puberty, growth of legs. And at the age of adolescence, it's a growth of trunk again. Next, we will discuss about growth spurts. When the rate of growth increases rapidly, it is called a growth spurt. The most important growth spurt is the one which occurs at puberty. This spurt produces a rapid increase in both weight and height. This is a graph that shows the rate of height increase according to the ages of both boys and girls. The peak of this growth spurt occurs at about age 12 for girls and age 14 for boys. Before this growth spurt, there are no important difference between boys and girls in weight and height. During growth spurts, most of the child's energy is used for growing. Children will be easily tired and may not be able to keep up their usual volume or intensity of training. Light training will stimulate body growth if the child has enough energy. There is major differences between boys and girls. The growth spurt and puberty occur at different ages for girls and boys. Girls usually start and finish the stages of puberty at adolescence earlier than boys. The characteristic differences between boys and girls occur at puberty in response to the changes in hormones produced by the body. Typically, this results in broader shoulders and a little change in hip width in boys, and broader hips and little change in shoulder width in girls. These changes affect the way boys and girls move. Wider hips in the girls result in the thighs being angled more inwards, which can change their running action. This may be very frustrating and difficult for the athlete to understand. The knowledgeable coaches prepare their female athletes before the changes at puberty. There may be a period for the athlete when there is little or no improvement in athletic performance. So, at such stages, they require encouragement and motivation. A good coach can do that. Once the athlete has adapted to the new body shape, progress can be made. This period of adjustment can take up to 2 years. The sexual development which happens at puberty can bring physical difficulties for adolescent children, as well as causing them mental and emotional preoccupation. Coaches need to be particularly understanding with girls when menstruation begins. This may, but should not, inhibit their participation in physical activity. Menstruation is a normal biological process that commences with sexual development at puberty. Male coaches, in particular, should understand what is happening to the bodies of the female athletes they coach. At puberty, girls start to produce mature eggs in their ovaries. They will notice this because each month they will lose a small amount of blood through the vagina. The onset of menstruation is known as menarche, and this is an obvious and key development stage for girls, which provide precise information about their rate of biological development. This menstruation is also known as a period and generally lasts for about 5 days. The illustration below will show the changes that occur in the ovaries and womb during the menstrual cycle. You can see it's a period of 28 days. It's called the menstrual cycle. So, on the beginning and the ending of the menstrual cycle, there is a possibility of discomfort. And even during the cycle, there can be different stages. It depends upon, it varies according to the individual. So, as a good coach, you should be able to understand their discomforts, and if they are not fit, let them take rest. And it's also important to minimize the load of workouts during such stages. Early and late developers. Each child develops at their own rate, and some children develop earlier and some later than the average. For both boys and girls, the age for the peak of their major growth spurt may frequently occur up to 2 years or more before or after the average age. The average age for boys is 14, while for girls it's 12. Early age for boys is 12 and girls is 10. Late age for boys is 16 and for girls it's 14. There can easily be differences of 4 years in physical development between children of the same chronological age. Thinking about growth stages and developmental age rather than age alone is perhaps one of the most important considerations when coaching young athletes. Early success may be due to entirely relative size and strength at the time if the athlete is an early maturer. As other children catch up, the early maturer may be left behind. On the other hand, the late developers are frequently overlooked if they are judged only on their performances. Next, we will see the structure of the body. The change in size and proportions are the easily observed signs of development. They are the result inside the body of changes to the skeleton. The skeleton of a child is mostly cartilage, which is softer than bone and can bend. The process by which cartilage becomes bones begins very early in life in special growth areas in the bones. These special growth areas are called growth plates. These growth areas in the bone are the weakest part of the bone. They can be easily injured by a sudden force or a repeated force. Mild forces can stimulate bone growth, but excessive force can cause damage and have serious long-term effects. Excessive bonding or excessively repeated vigorous throwing jumping should be avoided during periods of rapid growth. Once the body stops growing, the growth plate becomes solid bone and are no longer weaker areas. Children and exercise. Children do not tolerate exercise as well as adults. They are much less aware of their real limits. Children do not breathe as slowly or as deeply as adults. The average 6-year-old child breathes in 38 liters of air to get 1 liter of oxygen. The average 18-year-old needs only to breathe 28 liters of air to get 1 liter of oxygen. This means that the younger the athlete, the harder their bodies must work to provide the oxygen their muscles need. The body has three energy systems. Two of these are capable of working without oxygen, and the other is the aerobic system using oxygen. The physical changes that occur during and after puberty will improve athletes' energy producing abilities. The relative amount of the improvement in each energy system may help decide what event or distance is best for a young athlete. Developing control of movement. Coaches who work with young children must spend a great deal of time teaching a foundation of basic skills, helping children to become more skillful. These basic skills include the movements needed for running, jumping, and throwing. There should be a development of coordination in these basic athletics like movements before specific event skills are attempted. When children start to play either on their own or under supervision, they learn skills. The degree to which they can learn particular skills depends on their maturation and experience, the teaching they receive, and the difficulty of the task. Maturation refers to changes which occur in the body over a period of time. Learning is a change in a person's performance of a task that comes from practice. While one particular performance may vary from another, it is an indication of how well a skill has been learned. Both learning and performance are limited by maturation, not only of the skeleton and muscles but also of the nervous system. It is very important to note that the nervous system does not fully mature until early adulthood. The system includes the brain and all other nerves through which messages are passed around the body. Very young children are not as good at remembering or selecting important cues as older children. They cannot make decisions so well and cannot control muscular movements so quickly or precisely. The young athlete's skill will be limited by their stage of development. Children and adults both learn through applying previous experiences. The greater the opportunities a child has to move, the greater his chances to learn. The wider the range of movements and skills the children has a chance to practice, the greater the range of experiences to draw and to put into specific event skills. An essential task for coaches who work with young athletes is firstly teaching children foundation movement patterns and athletic-like activities. As they develop, the children can move to the skills of athletes and commence systematic training. Children's basic movement. Children learn different patterns of movement from birth. They go through stages as they learn the basic movements that will later help them with specific athletic skills. The image below shows a child's basic movements that he develops with age. At the age of 0 to 2 years, he begins the movements like crawling, walking, etc. At the age of 2 to 7 years, he develops basic movements like running, jumping, throwing, catching, kicking, etc. At the age of 7 to 10 years, he develops sports related movements. There is a considerable variation in the age which different children go through the same stages. Some may have very immature pattern of movement at puberty or in adolescence. Others may have a very mature patterns in childhood. The opportunities that are created by the coach can be very important in accelerating progress. For late developers, the coach must allow the athlete to fully learn basic movements before going on to more advanced movements. What is clearly known is that for all athletes, The basic movements can be coached, practiced, improved just as with any skill. Children's basic capabilities. Compared with adults, children are limited in their ability to take in information, make quick decisions, and evaluate their own performance because they have less experience than adults. Children do not know the important things to look for in skills or situations. This means they need help in concentrating on what is important for them at the time. As they develop skills and gain more experience, they are better able to take in and use more information. Good self-awareness and self-evaluation depend on being able to correctly use available feedback. Better performance depends upon being able to assess one's own previous performance and making corrections when needed. Children sometimes find it difficult to evaluate their own performance since they are relatively inexperienced. Self-evaluation can be developed by asking the athlete to concentrate on just one or two important points in practice and then using questions to raise self-awareness in the process of feedback. Developmental windows of opportunity. At birth and through infancy, a child's nervous system is in place but not fully developed. As the nervous system develops and matures in childhood, it becomes capable not only of sending clearer messages down the nerves, but also capable of sending these clearer, more precise messages down the nerves at a quicker, faster rate. If an infant wants to make a big movement of the muscles, this is very easy for them, but they find it difficult to make small, precise muscular movements. The time when the nervous system has matured sufficiently so that the child can make and learn accurate muscular movement coincides with the time when the child can now make quicker movements. The time immediately following this nervous maturation can be considered as a windows of opportunity for the development of skill and speed. In fact, skill and speed are not the only components of fitness that have windows of opportunity. The diagrams for the developmental windows of opportunity for boys and girls show additional opportunities for the development of strength, aerobic capacity, and the second time for speed. Developmental windows of opportunity for both young athlete females and males. You can clearly see the skill window, speed window 1, speed window 2, strength window 1, strength window 2, aerobic window. There is considerable variations in different developmental windows for female and male. According to the window of opportunity, kids can be assigned to different events, and also it can be assigned them with the amount of workout that is required. The first speed window is also related to the development of the nervous system and its ability to now carry messages much more quickly. The speed window does not mean that the athlete should now suddenly be doing 100-meter sprint repetitions. Instead, there should be a development of reaction movements and quickly initiated movements. This can be done through a variety of speed-based multi-directional movements and games based on activities lasting less than 4 to 5 seconds with adequate recovery in between. That means we do not need to give them 100-meter sprint repetitions. Instead, we can give them 30-meter sprint repetitions. That means small distances that can be covered in 4 to 5 seconds. The strength window is related to the hormonal changes that occur at puberty. Testosterone is the hormone associated with the development of secondary male sexual characteristics, but it is important to note that this hormone is also present in females. In females, it is present in much less significant amounts than males. And once puberty occurs for girls, the hormone responsible for female characteristics, estrogen, becomes dominant. For girls, these are effectively two strength windows. The first occurs just prior to puberty, when any strength gains and nervous adaptations achieved at this time will remain after puberty. The second window for girls occurs after puberty, when further strength training for functional strength development commences. For boys, the window of opportunity for strength occurs in the 12 to 18 months after puberty, as testosterone levels rise and peak. Boys could do strength training before puberty, but the effects would not be as effective as waiting for the testosterone levels to rise. Testosterone has a number of effects in the body. Testosterone promotes muscle development, and this is well known by most coaches. But it is also effects on the energy systems. Testosterone promotes an increase in the number of red blood cells, which are responsible for transporting oxygen around the body and to the exercising muscles. It is also increase the efficiency of the mitochondria, the part of the muscles and cells where oxygen is used to make energy. Both of these effects mean that the production of aerobic energy is improved and training can now work towards developing the athlete's aerobic capacity. The second speed window occurs due to the continuing development of the nervous system, now having the addition of the developing energy systems. During the speed window, all types of speed-related works may now be carried out to the benefit of the developing athlete. Next, missing a window of opportunity does not mean that a child will never reach their potential. But it does mean that if a window is missed in any way, there needs to be assessment of the athlete by the coach to see whether remedial work is necessary. This is frequently the case if a young athlete specializes in athletics even too early and don't develop full physical literacy. It should also be remembered that remedial work may frequently be necessary with mature adults returning to athletics after an extended break from sport. In these cases, the coaches should assess the individual's current physical literacy in addition to their fitness. Social development and the influence of others. Different groups of people become more or less important as children grow. These groups and individuals are sometimes called significant others because of the powerful influence they can have on children. Significant others include parents, teachers, and other children and coaches, all of whom they have different attitude towards a child. Changing situations and information from these different sources mean that children frequently have to adapt their image of themselves. When they become exposed to different adults and other children, the need to fit in with them becomes important. As they mature, they understand better how to get on with others. Parents are usually the most important figures in children's lives, particularly in their early years. As children grow, they become more independent of their parents, and parental influence becomes shared with the influence of others, such as teachers and coaches. Parents, however, remain an important part of how children see sport, and most children want their parents to be pleased with them and their efforts. The influence of other children becomes stronger as children become more independent. The relationships which develops also change in nature at different stages of development. Now we will see the development of relationship at different ages. Infancy and the early childhood. It approximately ranges from 0 to 5 years. Children are self-centered and expect others to adapt to meet their needs. Cooperative play is absent. Children play along each other rather than together. Middle childhood. It approximately ranges from 6 to 9 years. Friendship groups become bigger but are still quite small. Other children become more important and they learn to compare themselves with others to see who is best. Late childhood ranges from 10 to 13 years. Friends become more important. A greater range of social contacts are built and they may do sport because their friends do. They work well together but become more aware of differences in ability. Adolescence. It approximately ranges from 13 to 20 years, the period of transition from childhood to adulthood. Peer groups can become the dominant influence. This frequently causes conflict between adolescents and adults. Group members may work together very effectively. Coaches can develop very close relationships with young athletes and become very important to them because they teach new and exciting activities and reveal new abilities. They can assume a significance in children's lives second only to that of the family. This may be particularly true where athletics becomes especially important to the child and the coach athlete relationship continues for a long time. Coaches should be aware that they are in a position both to build confidence and to destroy it within a few words or even a look. When mistakes happen, it should be handled in a positive way, which may seem difficult, but it can and should be done. Mistakes, in fact, can be a useful part of learning. If you never make mistakes, you may never learn. Remember that athletes do not deliberately make mistakes. Give encouragement right away and help them to learn from their mistake. Accept the mistakes are a necessary part of learning and use them effectively. As a good coach, you should always praise the children for their efforts and try to support them to the maximum. Ensure that they get involved in all the activities and are motivated to gain success and also be able to perform to their maximum.